Hi guys, my name is Nonima Digela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about the CPA Section 35 plus disclosure violation in this video, because the previous two videos that we did, they are explaining more details about the case, etc. So now we are doing a third video trying to explain what had happened when it comes to the Senzumeyiwa matter. Before we get into that, guys, please make sure you do not forget to like, to share, to comment, and most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed on the channel. Please make sure you are watching the videos up until the end, and you are watching the ads that are coming through. When you are doing that, you are supporting this channel financially and in numbers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Now, let's talk about Criminal Procedure Act, Section 35. We're just doing that because, wow, we need to understand these things. So the core issue, not the phone calls, but fair trial rights. That's what we are discussing in this video. And that is why I'm going to need you to come through and have a conversation with me in the comment section. This case is not about whether two phone calls looked suspicious or look suspicious. It is about whether the state respected the Constitution and the Criminal Procedure Act. When the state selectively discloses evidence and suppresses an entire docket, the trial stops being adversarial. It becomes unconstitutional. We are learning when it comes to the Senzo case, guys. We know this. Section 35, the constitutional backbone. Section 35, bracket 3 bracket, on the Constitution guarantees every accused person the right to a fair trial, to accuse and challenge evidence, to be informed of the case against them, to have adequate time and facilities to prepare a defense. These rights are substantive, not symbolic. They impose positive duties on the state. The reason I am keeping quiet a second because I'm thinking, the guys were taken, all of them now, they are at Fossimampol. And this has nothing to do with them being criminals per se or whatever. In my view, it has everything to do with them living in a prison that is more stricter so that they don't get to make those phone calls per se. Maybe they do get the rights to make the phone calls, but those ones that are there by CIMEX, what if they get calls twice a month, once a month, 3 times a month? And the ones that it's I choose number what? Okay, whoever is at BMX is perhaps able to phone maybe once a week or every weekend. We don't know. So alone, that one alone is more limiting because now conversations that need to be had with their witnesses is being cut off. Do you understand? Because they are put in a prison that is more stricter. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So when we are mentioning these things of Section 35, a fair trial, to accuse and challenge evidence, how are they going to get a fair trial with a judge like that, number one, with a prosecutor like that, number two? Both of them, they are making sure the guys are really struggling when it comes to dealing with the case. Also, to accuse and challenge evidence. How are you going to accuse and challenge evidence if you can't speak to the people that are going to assist you in challenging the evidence? Do you understand? To be informed of the case against them. How are they going to be fully informed if every other time there is a surprise, something new, there's still an ongoing investigation while they are 2 years in a trial? Do you understand? To have adequate time and facilities to prepare a defense. How are they going to do that if even consultations are, yeah, do you get me? Yeah, I don't know if they go and consult in prison, they are allowed, etc. I don't know. So these rights are substantive, not symbolic. If that is the case, something is going on behind the scenes and it's not pretty well. So how are those things then going to impose duties on the state, positive duties on the state, if the state is behaving the way it does? Okay, do you understand now? And let's talk about disclosure, what the state must do. Under Criminal Procedure Act, principles plus constitutional jurisprudence, the prosecution must disclose all evidence relevant to guilty or innocence, all investigative material, even if it undermines the state's case, parallel investigations and abundant theories. Do you understand this? Prior inconsistent conclusions by investigators. Now, if the CPA is talking like that, all evidence relevant to guilt or not or innocence, this is the same court, the same prosecutor that did not take the witnesses through everything, especially section 35. Do you remember Mgomezulu had to do I remember when they were reading accused number 3's section 205, they did not tell us that they ended at 5 o'clock, but we had things up until 8:30. And Ubaloy did not read all of that. All investigative material, even if it undermines, no, they don't do that when it comes to this. Look at what we heard about Gwabini being arrested. We never knew that. Parallel investigations, Gwabini, for instance, was never arrested. Gininda never told us. He presented Gwabini as a key witness, but never a section 204, never. Do you understand? There's a lot of things that are not going right here. Prior inconsistent conclusion by investigators. See, none of that was happening. No, these guys are going to win this case if it goes to another court. So this includes unused dockets, draft warrants, internal recommendations, contradictory witness statements. Unused dockets, 375 was held back. They would never disclose it until TIFO forced them to disclose. Draft warrants, we don't know any of that. They never spoke about them. Internal recommendations, they never spoke about the recommendations of 375. Contradictory witness statements, well, we do have the people in the house contradictory statements. That's why the case is going the way it does. So what went wrong? What went wrong here in the Senzo Meyiwa case? Number one violation is suppression of docket 375. Docket 375 existed, was compiled by SEPS officers, recommended charges against different suspects, which is the people that were inside the house, directly contradicted the current narrative. Yet, it was never fully disclosed, never formally withdrawn, never tested in court, never explained to the defense at the outset. Suppression of an entire docket is per se unfairness. You see? Second violation, selective disclosure. The state disclosed phone call metadata, disclosed confession statements, withheld contradictory investigative conclusions. This violates the principle that the prosecution is a minister of justice, not a strategist. You cannot disclose what helps you and bury what hurts you. That's exactly what is happening in the Senzo Meyiwa case. Violation number 3, ambush prosecution. Umshololo told us this. Disclosure must be full, early, continuous. Here, the defense only encounters the second docket through testimony, the existence of draft warrants mid-trial, inconsistencies years into proceedings. That is a trial by ambush, not due process. They will win this case. They go SCA. CPA principles that were breached. CPA section 166, court must decide matters as brought before them. Introducing suppressed material mid-trial without proper motion distorts proceedings. Or the alteram pattern, the defense must be heard before decisions affecting their rights are made. Reopening jurisprudence. Reopening a case to fix state defects, especially after suppression, is exceptionally and disfavored. This is what happened in the last run of the case before they went to recess. And why this prejudice is irreparable. Prejudice here is not theoretical. The defense was denied the opportunity to investigate alternative suspects early, forced to adjust strategy mid-trial, confronted with a narrative already shaped by omission, deprived of contemporaneous cross-examination leverage. Courts have repeatedly held Where prejudice cannot be cured, the trial is unfair. I like that. I like Section 35, Criminal Procedure Act. It's going to deal with this case and the case is going to be thrown out. How this links to the phone calls. The phone calls only matter because docket 375 was buried. Alternative suspects were removed from the frame. Their narrative vacuum had to be filled. This makes the calls contextually misleading evidence. Their probative value is artificially inflated by suppression. The legal consequence: one, disclosure violations are established. A court may exclude evidence, draw adverse inferences against the state, grant permanent stays, acquit due to trial unfairness. This is not mercy, it is constitutional enforcement. The Constitution does not ask whether evidence sounds convincing. It asks whether the accused were treated fairly. And when a docket is buried, when disclosure is selective, when narratives are curated, the trial itself becomes the violation. Justice does not survive that. That's what we are going to see at the Senzo Meyiwa trial. So whatever things that annoy us, etc., please don't dismay. That time is going to come. This case is preparing for an acquittal, whether we like it or not. Thank you so much. I want to see you on our next video. Just make sure on this one you stick around, and also you make sure you like, you share, you comment, you subscribe, and most importantly, please do drop your comments in the comment section. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.